It is so wonderful to be back with all of you. After 4 years, I tested positive for COVID. It was the first time that I got it. Woo! Wow. I'm obviously completely negative and totally fine and just so grateful to be back. And I want to say a very special thank you to our ministerial intern, Shelley Walker, for jumping in so beautifully. Her talk last week, by the way, is titled The Science of Joy. It is wonderful. Please check it out if you missed it. Shelley provided just amazing tools, some cool science for all of us to experience greater levels of happiness and joy, which of course is our birthright, as well as a radical act of self-care, especially during the times we are living in right now. Thank you again, beloved. Thank you. So, today is the first day of fall. Today is the September equinox, also known as the fall equinox. And so wherever you live in the world, the fall equinox is just one of 2 days in the whole year where the hours of night equal the hours of day. Equi means equal and nox means night, equinox. And so here in the northern hemisphere, from now until December 21st, the solstice, the days will begin to grow darker. They will start to get chilly in many places. The leaves will change color. They will begin to fall to the ground, reminding all of us to gently ask ourselves, what is it that we are willing to let go of? What is it that we are willing to let fall to the ground? What is that for you, my friend? What is it that you are now finally willing to just let fall to the ground? It could be that harsh inner critic voice, or it could be the painful persistence of perfection that is so unkind. It could be maybe insulting or diminishing those on the other side. Think of your social media posts. It could be, and I'll talk about that in a minute, in a good way. Perhaps the letting go for you right now is letting go of a relationship that is no longer serving you, or a job, or a habit that has become untenable or even toxic. Whatever it is for you, I invite you to consider what you can, however small or large, release from your life so that you can create more spaciousness for that which is wanting to expand and grow in your life. In letting go of anything that is no longer serving you, the magic in that, the grace in that, the love in that, is that it creates the space for more good, more compassion, and as Shelley taught so beautifully last week, more joy in your life. So I invite you to just be with that this week. You know, I want to take a moment and I want to acknowledge the outpouring of kindness from so many of you when I was sick. Your supportive emails and messages, deeply kind messages, really buoyed me and uplifted me, and I want to say thank you. It really brought home for me too just how important community is. We are so blessed to have this global community here at the New Thought Center for Spiritual Living, because the ways in which we care for each other are directly connected to our collective spiritual purpose on the planet. We have a shared collective spiritual purpose. Speaking of which, history and the greatest peace-building movements in the world have taught us time and again that unless division, and there is a lot of that right now, is met with loving compassion, we only get more division. Every great successful resolution to conflict or peace movement has occurred as a result of conscious, mindful, nonviolent, direct action. And as metaphysicians in this community, we understand that includes our thoughts. That includes what is happening on the inside. The greatest architects of peace building around the world understood that stoking the flames of division and vitriol, either out loud or silently, in any situation, by the way, only causes more division and vitriol. We so often just want to get that comment in, don't we? We just want to be right. Right? Anybody? So how do we, as folks on a spiritual path, participate in the healing of the division that is currently showing up in our world? My friends, it is a two-step process, actually, and it begins internally. Spiritual growth, or enlightenment as the Buddhists call it, only and always starts on the inside. Here in New Thought, we understand that the healing of what is happening outside in our outer world first must begin on the inside. The greatest teachers have taught that we will not have peace out in the world until we have peace within ourselves. And this is our inner work. Now, we hear this phrase a lot around here. I got to do my inner work. I'm doing my inner work. I promise it does not have to be that laborious. It can feel like it at times. It doesn't have to be. And all this means when we say in our progressive spiritual community we are doing our inner work is that we are making the unconscious within us conscious. That which, in what situations do we get activated? I'm using that word instead of triggered now. I prefer it. What is it that activates us, that makes us need to post that thing, or need to get the last word, or need to be right? I promise you, it is something that we have not yet dealt with on the inside of our being. And so doing our inner work involves taking the time to go within and uncover our false beliefs. It's about compassionately looking at the places within yourself that want to, in an instant, create division. Every single one of us has done that. None of us walks on water yet, right? It's about healing that inner critic or the places within us that hold us back from our good. And that's a capital G good. It's about unlearning societal or perhaps early toxic religious messages of not enoughness. It is about all of that revealing of truth and healing and getting to the place where we can finally claim our worth with a capital W and our worthiness so that we don't feel we have to be right. Do you see? So that we can see the worth, the inherent worthiness in everyone. And right here in our community, we have all sorts of spiritual tools and practices and classes and workshops to support you in this journey. And know that in doing this inner work, we get to a place in our own spiritual growth where truly, once and for all, we are able to live a healthy, balanced life that is centered in unconditional love and deep compassion for ourselves, where we are not so quickly activated, where we do the work of love from a place of love. That is the spiritual activist. Which then, and this is part 2, where the healing of the division really kicks in, because having our own inner work, having done it, we are far more equipped to walk out into the world, and we are far more equipped to able to see the God, the love, the source, whatever word you like, in others, in particular in those we don't agree with. This then creates the spaciousness within ourselves to respond to, say, division in a proactive and thoughtful and mindful and conscious and truly effective way. And it is in this energy field that we experience peace in our lifetime. This is how it is done. And the peace I'm talking about is a living, breathing kind of peace. It requires loving, tending to daily, starting with ourselves. Where am I not being peaceful, kind, and compassionate to myself? That's where it begins. And this, my friends, is the spiritual path. This is the terra firma, or the holy ground, that all the great spiritual teachers across the millennia taught. My talk today is called Me, Myself, and We, the healing power of progressive spirituality. Progressive spirituality requires that we see no stranger, that we deeply understand all of our interconnectedness with all beings, even and especially those we disagree with. Progressive spirituality requires that we step up as the ordinary angels that we are, not for some, but for all, for everyone. There's an Irish saying, Céad Míle Fáilte. It translates to 100,000 welcomes. And this saying, Céad Míle Fáilte, comes from an ancient Irish law called the Brehon Law, which held that in the old world, every single household was obliged to provide some sort of hospitality to travelers who arrived at their door at no cost. But this is the part that I love about the Brehon Law. This hospitality was given in exchange for what we call in my family your party piece, meaning it was given in exchange for some piece of poetry or song or music or storytelling from the traveler to the Irish person, and then in turn it would be shared. So the traveler or the foreigner, as they also called them back then, this was like the earliest form of the law of circulation, the spiritual tool of the law of circulation. What you put out into the world returns to you multiplied abundantly. The Irish would care for the traveler, now known as the immigrant, migrant, or refugee. And in turn, the Irish person would learn about their culture, their life, their way of living. And this would automatically create connection. It was the law. And many cultures in the ancient world required that travelers be treated well. In many cases, it was considered a great blessing to have a, quote, foreigner show up at your door. The wisdom of the Torah says the foreigner residing among you must be treated as native-born. Love them as yourself. That is ancient wisdom. Can you imagine if we had a Brehon Law in Springfield, Ohio? Now, if there are some of you who don't watch any television at all, or have any screens whatsoever, and you're not aware of what is happening in Springfield, Ohio, and there may be some, I just invite you to look it up. I am not going to repeat the disgusting racism. I'm not going to give that air here. I'm going to invite you on your own to look that up. But please, please do if you don't know what's happening there. Can you imagine the welcoming Brehon Law in place in Springfield, the difference that our beloved Haitian sisters, brothers, and siblings would be experiencing right now? This ancient tradition of welcoming the traveler got me thinking. Where in my own life am I not welcoming the stranger? Where in my own life do I show up in places without a high level of hospitality to those who may need it? It's an important question, I think, for each of us. The wise law of ancient Ireland required curiosity. It required curiosity, which demanded an opening for connection of some kind on the most basic level. They knew back then that remaining curious about the immigrant, the migrant, the refugee, and sharing and exchanging stories and culture helped to prevent otherizing and division and even war. They understood that this practice proactively supported peace. In my own life, I was reflecting recently to a dear friend that there is a married couple, a gal and a fellow, who are dear friends of mine, and they are very much in my life, and we could not be more different, especially on the political side of things. Now, they're not, dangerous conspiratists, there we go. They don't live in that radical world. However, they do live in a completely different universe than I do, and they will be voting very differently than I will. Anybody? Right? And here's the spiritual teaching in that, because there is so much for us as people on this spiritual path in that. I know this couple myself to be the most deeply kind, supportive, compassionate, considerate, generous, helpful people I've ever met. Full stop. Full stop. We share prayer requests with each other all the time. That's where our hearts meet. And early on in our friendship a few years ago, the woman in the couple quietly unfriended me on social media. And by the way, I'm very careful what I post. And even so, she unfriended me on social media. And initially, I felt a little sting. Shelley's like this. It doesn't feel great to be unfriended, you know? But let me tell you something. Upon reflection, I realized very quickly that, of course, our social media posts could not have been more different. And despite my ideology, despite my political leanings, she continued to reflect care, compassion, and kindness towards me. Do you see that? It moved me so deeply. In her book, See No Stranger, the civil rights activist Valerie Kaur writes, "You are part of me I do not yet know." She was part of me that I did not yet know. That level of tolerance and love. I recognized the wisdom in her unfriending me. It was an effort to keep and hold dear our friendship. And while we could not, again, be more different politically, truly, I see extraordinary examples of divinity within both her and her husband. You know, it's so easy, especially now, to write people off or to disregard those human beings, those ordinary angels who, for whatever reason, I don't know, family of origin, place, whatever it may be, it is so easy to disregard them. I think in this conversation, there is so much complexity. There's so much complexity. And we incarnated at this very time for it. We are here for it, to become harbingers of peace in all of the muck and mire that is happening. This is a complex era we are living in, and it requires a heavy dose of consciousness and spiritual maturity. It requires that we hold to the spiritual truth that despite our differences, we are all connected by God, by spirit, by love. Every single one of us. So the question for those of us then on the spiritual path is, how do we love our neighbor when we so vehemently disagree with them, maybe? And moreover, how do we see God in them, Spirit in them, when we have such profoundly opposing views that could potentially change the trajectory of our country? It's a big deal, never to be minimized. Friends, this has been one of the most profound questions throughout millennia. We are not the first to experience this, nor will we be the last. It is the journey of our walk as humans. It's so easy to react to the ugliness that's being spewed with more ugliness, even in subtle ways. But my friends, that stops progress. And we are a progressive spirituality. From a metaphysical perspective, we understand energetically that what we focus on increases always. And so, if we get swept up and are focused on the ugliness or the hate, what is going to happen? More ugliness and hate. That's what we're going to grow, internally and externally. Look, Jesus of Nazareth himself turned over the tables in the temple when he saw the injustice happening there. Righteous anger is natural. It is important to disrupt inequity and oppression. But think about it for a moment, my friends. Jesus turned over the tables because they were gambling in a house of worship. He said, this house is a house of prayer, and drove them out. He did not attack their worth as human beings. That is the difference. That is the spiritual teaching for all of us. That is how we're going to get through this time, this election, intact, with strong, spiritually grounded muscles. As a person on a spiritual path, you can completely disagree with, strongly challenge, and work to change a system or policy that you find destructive and even reprehensible without becoming destructive and reprehensible yourself. This is the spiritual activist. This is our walk, and we get to walk it together. This, my friends, is what I call spirit-led social justice. What is happening right now in the Haitian community in Springfield, Ohio, is destructive and reprehensible. And so rather than participating in further hate-mongering and cheap shots, the wisest and most divinely aligned response to all of that is to firmly course correct with love. I saw a beautiful example of love in action there last week. Some of you may have seen this story of the non-Haitian residents there in Springfield doing exactly what I'm talking about by showing up in support at a Haitian restaurant. Have you seen that? We have it right here. It says, "This is Springfield. Our residents dining at one of our Haitian restaurants. Please share this instead of the not-so-funny memes about cats and dogs. It's not helping." That is love in action. Yes. 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 Please know that the vast majority of the good people in Springfield are turning over the tables. They are engaging in spirit-led social justice. They are speaking out with love, and they are speaking strongly. They want the world to know that this was a hateful, racist lie spewed only for political gain. And we here at NTCSL take a stand for human dignity for all people, and that includes, my friends, ensuring fair and safe elections so that every citizen has a chance to participate in our democracy. I think voting is one of the most powerful prayers we have. In 1972, in the Journal of Social Philosophy, the great Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who worked and marched beside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., wrote an article called "The Reasons for My Involvement in the Peace Movement." The rabbi wrote, "In a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible." In a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. So for those of you who are here in person, we have our very special second postcard party following service. Today you can just go right downstairs. We've got nosh, we've got coffee, we've got tea. You can visit, you can mingle, you can do a couple of postcards, fill out a couple of postcards. We have instructions on how to do that. Those postcards will be sent to folks in swing states to help support the national grassroots effort to get the vote out. And we here in our community partner with the Center for Common Ground, who have hard data, by the way, from the last several years, showing that postcarding work absolutely increased voter engagement. So that you are aware, often these postcards reach voters who do not have a phone number on file. Perhaps they don't have a cell phone for texting, for outreach. Perhaps they don't know where or how their particular voting system is in whatever state they are. We provide that information on the postcards for them. And it's also just a lovely reminder for them to get their plan in gear if it isn't already. We want to ensure fair and safe elections, and this is something we together can actually do. I do hope you join me downstairs after service today, and I wanted to do that together. And I also want to thank our community members at NTCSL Colorado, as well as California, hi Mom, for all of the postcards that you have completed. And if you're watching from another state or you're listening from another place, you too, you can go to centerforcommonground.org, centerforcommonground.org, and you can get all the information that you need. The values we share here at NTCSL take a stand for love in the world, for our spiritual principles that we practice here, the spiritual principles of inclusivity and equity and human dignity for all people, freedom for all people, and the absolute knowing that we are all of us one. And so to that, I want to just share with you our beloved stewardship team. I'm walking slowly so you can follow me, Shayla, with the camera. I don't usually walk this far. I've walked over here quite a bit. Our beloved stewardship, beautiful team, decided that we can have a yard sign that feels very us. I'm taking my thoughts and prayers to the ballot box. Isn't that great? It's double-sided. I love us. I love this so much. We have them for sale here today, $20. It's yours. They come with a stand and all of that. And those of you online, you can go online. You can order it online as well. So, you know, if this is your first time here and you haven't yet gotten it, we are all about inclusivity and freedom and protecting human rights. So, this week, my loves, I invite you to notice the arrival of fall and consider what it is that you can release and let fall to the ground in order to create more spaciousness, more good, and more love in your life. Notice where you can be more welcoming to those who are different from you. And finally, I invite you to gently notice where you might be reacting and inadvertently, because I believe it often sneaks up on us, inadvertently participating in any kind of us and them or divisiveness, and make the unconscious within you conscious. I invite you to respond as love in action. As I always say, you can say anything with love. That's my invitation this week for you, to respond with love. Turn over those tables. Just do it with kindness, compassion, and love.